My daughter sent a text message that said, "Do not dare show your face here for the holidays because we do not want to see you." My son said nothing at all, so I calmly replied with one word, "Okay," and then I went online and canceled every single bank payment I had been making to them for years. By the time the sun came up the next morning, both of them were standing on my porch in the cold, but they were about to learn that the most dangerous person in the room is the one who listens without speaking. Before I go any further, let me say something honest. If this opening hit you in any way, subscribe to Voices of Emily so you stay here with me for the rest of this story. I am putting a part of myself into these words, and I want you to walk through it with me. And when you can, leave a comment telling me what this moment reminded you of. Your voice matters here. Then tap the like button so this story reaches someone who might need it more than we know. My name is Hattie Mae Washington, and at 65 years old, I have learned that silence is not just a lack of noise. It is a place where you gather your strength. For 35 years, I believed that being a good mother meant pouring every drop of my soul into my children, until I was a dry well. I thought love was measured by how much of myself I could give away. My husband, Otis, passed away 8 years ago, leaving me with a sturdy brick house in a quiet corner of Atlanta, a decent pension from my years at the post office, and a life insurance policy that he worked 2 jobs to maintain. Otis always told me to look out for myself, but when he died, I felt so guilty for being the one still breathing that I tried to buy my children's happiness. I was not a wealthy woman, but I was comfortable. I was generous to a fault, a fact that I would eventually have to face in the cold light of day. Every month, without fail, I sent my daughter Tasha $1,500. She is 36 and married to Marcus, a man who seems to have $1 million appetite on a dime store budget. They have 2 children, Nia and Caleb, my sweet grandbabies who were the light of my life. Do you know how hard it is to say no when someone tells you your grandchildren might miss out on dance lessons or football camp? My son Jermaine is 33, and he received $1,000 every month from me. He works in computer repair, but he always claimed his rent was going up or his car needed work. Beyond those monthly checks, there were the extras that I never counted. I bought Tasha a new refrigerator when hers died. I paid for Jermaine's dental surgery. I maxed out my credit cards every Christmas just to see them smile. I told myself this was what a mother was supposed to do. I told myself that this was the legacy of a strong family. But lately, the air in the room had started to feel thin. The phone calls were getting shorter, and they always seemed to start with a request for money before they even asked about my health. "Hi, Mama, did that transfer go through yet? Mama, I need an extra $300 for the light bill." The "I love you" at the end of the calls started to sound like a receipt for a transaction, rather than a feeling from the heart. Thanksgiving was the first real sign that the foundation was cracking. Tasha barely looked up from her social media, and Jermaine stayed for an hour before saying he had to get back to his friends. Neither one of them noticed that my knees were swollen, or that the house felt too big and too quiet for one woman. Is it too much to ask for your children to see you as a human being instead of a bank? Then December arrived, and the cold did not just stay outside. I had mentioned to Tasha that I would love to host Christmas dinner this year. Or perhaps I could come to her house and help with the cooking. I wanted to see the children open their presents. I wanted to smell the pine and the nutmeg and feel like I belonged to something again. Tasha did not call me back. Instead, she sent a text message that felt like a slap across my face. I read it over and over, my eyes blurring as I stood in my kitchen. "Do not you dare come here for Christmas," she wrote. "We do not want to see you. We need family time, just us. You are always so needy and demanding. Just leave us alone for the holidays." My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. Needy? Demanding? I had spent 35 years making sure they never felt a moment of need in their lives. I waited for Jermaine to call me. I knew he was on the group chat. I knew he had seen what his sister said to me. I sat in my living room for 6 hours, watching the shadows grow long on the carpet, waiting for my son to defend his mother. Silence. That silence felt like a betrayal that cut deeper than any words Tasha could have typed. I did not sleep that night. I lay in Otis's old chair, staring at the front door, wondering when I had become a stranger in my own family's hearts. By 5 o'clock the next morning, the sun was just a gray promise on the horizon. I sat at my computer with a cup of black coffee. I opened my banking app and looked at those automatic transfers. $1,500 for Tasha. $1,000 for Jermaine. Month after month, year after year. I thought about Tasha's text and Jermaine's silence. A cold, sharp clarity settled over me. I realized that I had been paying for their love, and if they did not want me, they certainly did not need my money. I canceled every single payment. I deleted the schedules. I wiped the slate clean. Then I picked up my phone and sent a one-word reply to Tasha. Okay. The feeling that came over me was not anger. It was a strange, analytical curiosity. I wanted to see who they really were when the faucet ran dry. I opened my filing cabinet and pulled out the records Otis had taught me to keep. I started a spreadsheet, adding up every check, every emergency loan, and every gift from the last 5 years. When the final number appeared on the screen, I had to lean back and catch my breath. $210,000. In 5 years, I had given them enough money to buy a house, and all I had to show for it was a text message telling me to stay away at Christmas. Have you ever realized that you were the architect of your own heartbreak? The phone started ringing at 10 o'clock that morning. It was Tasha. I did not answer. It rang again. I let it go to voicemail. Then Jermaine called. I watched the screen glow and fade, glow and fade. Finally, I picked up when Tasha called for the 4th time. Her voice was not soft or apologetic. It was sharp and demanding. Mama, what is going on with the bank? The mortgage payment bounced. You need to fix this right now because Marcus is furious. I looked at the wall where her graduation picture hung, and I felt nothing but a cool breeze in my soul. I said, "No, Tasha, I do not think I will be fixing that." The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. Then she started screaming. She called me selfish. She said I was having a mental breakdown because I was lonely. She told me that I was punishing her children because I was being extra. I told her that I had bills of my own, and that I was 65 years old and needed to think about my future. She laughed a cold, ugly laugh and said that I had a pension and I was fine. I hung up the phone and turned it off. I knew I needed a plan. I was not going to let them paint me as the villain. I needed to protect myself legally and financially. I called attorney Elijah Vance, a man who had been a friend of Otis for 40 years. The next day, I sat in Elijah's office. The room smelled of old paper and peppermint. I showed him the spreadsheet and the text messages. Elijah shook his head, his face growing dark. "Hattie Mae," he said, "this is more than just a family squabble. This is financial exploitation. They are treating you like a crop they can harvest whenever they want." He told me that in the state of Georgia, what they were doing could be seen as elder abuse if they were using emotional manipulation to take my assets. He asked me if I was ready to do what was necessary to protect myself. I told him that I had been asleep for a long time, but I was wide awake now. We spent 3 hours drafting a new will. In the old one, everything was split equally between Tasha and Jermaine. In the new one, I created a trust for my grandchildren that they could not touch until they were 25. The rest of my estate was destined for a scholarship fund at the local community center in Otis's name. I also signed a document giving Elijah power of attorney if I ever became incapacitated. I did not want my children making decisions for me if they only saw me as a dollar sign. Do you think it is possible for a mother to ever truly stop hoping her children will change? Let me pause for just a second. This part of the story is where things start to get heavier, and I want you to stay with me for it. If you have not subscribed yet, do it now. It keeps you close while I take you through the rest of this. And if something in this stirred a memory in you, tell me in the comments. After that, press like so this story does not disappear into the feed. When I got home, Jermaine's car was in my driveway. He was leaning against the porch railing, looking like the boy I used to tuck in at night, but his eyes were hard. Tasha's SUV pulled in right behind me. Marcus was in the driver's seat, and I could see the kids in the back. My heart hurt when I saw Nia waving at me through the window, but I knew Marcus and Tasha were using them as shields. I got out of my car and stood my ground. Jermaine did not even say hello. He just asked me why I was trying to ruin his life over a Christmas text message. Tasha stepped out of her car, her face red with anger. I told them to come inside, but I did not offer them tea or cake. We sat in the living room, and the air was thick with resentment. Tasha told me that Nia would have to quit her dance classes. Jermaine told me he would be evicted. They spoke as if I were the one who had spent their money. I asked Jermaine how much he made at the repair shop, and he told me it was none of my business. I told him it became my business when he asked me to pay his rent. I asked Tasha about the cruise she and Marcus took last summer, the one I saw on her Facebook page. She told me they needed a break from the stress of the kids, and I was the one who was supposed to pay for that break. Then Tasha tried a different tactic. She started to cry. She said she was sorry for the text, that she was just stressed out and did not mean it. She said she missed her mama, and that the kids missed their nana. She told me that if I would just restart the payments, we could go back to how things were. I looked at her and I saw the woman I had raised, but I also saw the manipulation. I told her that we could never go back to how things were, because I finally saw the truth. I told them both that the bank of Hattie Mae was closed for good. Jermaine stood up and told me that if I did this, I would never see them again. He said I would die alone in this big house and nobody would care. The words were meant to break me, but they only made me stronger. I told them to get out of my house. Tasha stopped at the door and told me that Nia and Caleb would forget who I was. She said she would tell them that their nana did not love them anymore. That was the moment the last string of my heart snapped. I watched them drive away, and for the first time in my life, I did not run after them. I sat down and I cried until my chest felt like it was going to cave in, but when I was done, I felt light. I felt like I had finally put down a heavy trunk that I had been carrying for miles. 2 weeks later, I received a thick envelope in the mail. It was not an apology. It was a court summons. Tasha and Jermaine had filed a petition to have me declared mentally incompetent. They claimed that I was showing signs of early onset dementia, and that I was making irrational financial decisions that proved I could no longer care for myself. They were seeking to be appointed as my legal guardians, so they could take control of my bank accounts and my house. My own flesh and blood were trying to strip me of my personhood because I stopped giving them $1,500 a month. I called Elijah Vance immediately. He was not surprised. He told me that when people lose their source of income, they often turn into predators. He arranged for me to see a top-rated neurologist and a psychiatrist for a full evaluation. I spent 8 hours being tested, answering questions, and performing tasks. The doctors told me that my mind was as sharp as a razor. They wrote a report stating that there was absolutely no evidence of cognitive decline. But the battle was just beginning. I had to face my children in a courtroom and prove that I was still the master of my own life. The day of the hearing was cold and gray. Tasha and Jermaine sat on one side of the room with a lawyer, who looked like he had never spent a day in the sun. They would not look at me. Their lawyer stood up and told the judge that I had suddenly cut off all communication and financial support to my family without cause. He said I was acting paranoid and that I was isolating myself. Then it was our turn. Elijah stood up and presented the spreadsheet of the $210,000 I had given them. He showed the judge the text message Tasha had sent me about Christmas. The judge was a woman about my age, with eyes that had seen everything. She looked at Tasha and asked her if it was true that she had told her mother to stay away at Christmas. Tasha tried to lie, but we had the printouts. Then the judge asked Jermaine if he was currently employed. He stumbled over his words and admitted he had been fired 3 months ago for personal issues. The judge looked at the medical reports from my doctors, and then she looked at my children. She said she had never seen such a transparent attempt at a money grab in all her years on the bench. She dismissed the case and ordered Tasha and Jermaine to pay my legal fees. As we walked out of the courtroom, Tasha tried to grab my arm. She was sobbing, saying they were just worried and they did not have any money left. I looked at her, and I did not see my daughter anymore. I saw a stranger who had tried to steal my life. I told her that she was an adult, and it was time for her to learn how the world worked. I walked away and I did not look back. That night, I sat on my porch and watched the stars. I realized that the silence I had been so afraid of was actually peace. I had lost my children, but I had found Hattie Mae again. Months passed, and the house stayed quiet. I joined a gardening club at the church, and I started volunteering at the library. I made friends who liked me for my conversation and my recipes, not for my bank account. I learned that Aunt Pearline, my sister, had been right all along when she told me I was spoiling them rotten. Pearline and I started traveling together. We went to Savannah and sat by the ocean. We went to Memphis and listened to the blues. I started to live a life that Otis would have been proud of. I was no longer a well that people came to only when they were thirsty. Then I got a call from Marcus. He told me that he and Tasha were getting a divorce. He said that once the money from me stopped, Tasha's spending did not, and they were buried in credit card debt. He apologized for his part in everything and asked if I would like to see the grandchildren. He said he was moving into a small apartment and that he wanted me to be a part of their lives, but he promised he would never ask me for a dime. I cried when I heard Nia's voice on the phone for the first time in a year. She told me she missed my peach cobbler. I started seeing my grandchildren every other weekend. We go to the park, we read books, and we talk about their granddaddy Otis. I do not give them expensive gifts, and I do not pay for their lessons, but I give them my time and my heart. Tasha still refuses to speak to me, and Jermaine has moved to another state, but I have made my peace with that. I have learned that you cannot fix people who do not want to be whole. I have learned that being a mother does not mean being a victim. I am 66 now, and for the first time in my life, I am truly free. Before I close this story, let me say this. Telling stories like this takes something out of me. And if you found any meaning in it, subscribe to Voices of Emily, so we stay connected for the next one. Then share a comment with your thoughts or your experience. I read everyone because your perspective matters more than you think. And if this story left an imprint on you, tap the like button, so it reaches someone who might be walking through their own version of it tonight. The hardest lesson for a mother is learning that no is an act of love. Family is about who stands by you when the money is gone. Take care of yourselves. You deserve it.